Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, where you are. And again, welcome to this week. And thank you for joining once again. So, my name is Lakshman Belvase. I work with MenEngage Global Alliance as one of the co directors. And I'm really happy to welcome you all to this session today. So, next slide, Osvaldo. So, what we are trying to do today is, this quote says everything. So, in the work we are doing when it comes to transforming patriarchal masculinities and work with boys and men, we are trying to sort of align ourselves with the feminist agenda and the agenda of feminist gender equality and vision for that. And this quote from Lila Watson, who is an Aboriginal activist, says it all. So, if you, how should we join in this? So, if you have come help here to help me, you are wasting your time. But if you have come because your liberation is bound with me, let us work together, which is also the philosophy that resonates with the theme of the symposium, which is Ubuntu, is that I am because you are, and hence we are tied together, irrespective of whether or not we realize our existence, ties with each other and to the planet, and hence the issue of caring and making sure that we connected with this philosophy as we work in this. So, on behalf of the Global Secretariat team at MenEngage Alliance, I want to thank you for attending this session. As Leila says, our liberation from all the oppressive structures, ideologies, and behaviors are at stake for all of us, but disproportionately towards women, girls, and people of diverse gender identities, and men and boys as well. We have come to realize, based on the feminist agenda of self care as a political act, the inner work is an important part of the journey that we should integrate in the work we are doing on transforming masculinities and work with boys and men in gender equality. This should be an essential, radical, and bold step for us to integrate this focus as it directly relates to the transformation of humanity that we have been envisioning and also directly connects with the concept of Ubuntu, as I said, which is the theme of the third MenEngage Global Symposium, or the Ubuntu Symposium. We cannot do transformative work without other men and boys if we are not part of inner transformation along with them. We cannot also advocate for and build new institutions and policies free from patriarchal masculinities and patriarchy broadly if we continue, consciously or unconsciously, recreating and reinforcing the same system in our personal, professional, and public lives that we are trying to dismantle with the work that we are engaging in. Today, you will, and we all will hear from some of the experts from across the regions who have been thinking and applying these concepts of inner work, self care as a political act, um, with honesty, commitment, and authenticity. So we believe that the stories of their journey, which must have not been so easy, we must acknowledge that when they started to unpack what this means to them and the work they are involved in, will give immense insight, and we all will leave with this session with inspirations to explore and apply in our personal and public work and support each other's liberation as a collective, with universal connection between every person, a shared sense of compassion, responsibility, and humanity for all. So we are thankful to the expert panelists who have been so kind to be with us and spend their valuable time today here at this session. Melissa Wainaina, I hope I pronounced that correctly, from Kenya, Ian from Netherlands, James from the US, Jose Alfredo from Mexico, and Samita from Sri Lanka. We admire their passion, all of yours, and thank you for your courage to talk about your journey and be vulnerable in front of us, which is quite a bold step, as I said earlier, to share your personal and deep reflections in why inner work has been an important piece in your work and as an individual activist, but also a person holding different multiple identities and positions as well, and shed light on why it is important for networks like MenEngage, like us, and its members and partners as we move forward with this work. And again, Really, really grateful and looking forward to the session. So, with that, I would now hand it over to Osvaldo Montoya, who will then take us forward from here. Over to you, Osvaldo.
Thank you so much, Laxman. Muchas gracias. And now, as a moderator, I have the pleasure to introduce Jens Vantrich, our dear friend and colleague from MenEngage Europe, who will bring us together in a centering practice. Jens, over to you.
Thank you very much, Osvaldo. Thank you, Laxman. Thank you, everyone, for being here. I'm really excited and truly also quite nervous for this. I think it's wonderful we're having this session. It's been important for me so long, and I'm nervous because well, I'm going to do something now online that I haven't done online yet. I'm used to doing centering and inner work, but then I like to be physically together with people. So now let's try to get physically together through this wonderful online technique that we have. I have a few minutes to help us get together, get to ourselves, to center. Please try to make yourself as comfortable as you can be, whether sitting or standing, as I am. Um, feel your feet on the ground, please. And from your feet, also feel your sit bones, feel how you're sitting if you're sitting. And if you like, you can close your eyes. And if you don't like, you might want to give it a try and observe what's happening. You can observe your breath as it goes in and as it goes out. And then from the feet down again, maybe you can move your toes a bit and feel how they touch the floor. And maybe you can feel your heels also pushing into the floor and feel the connection with this wonderful earth that we are part of. And then from the feet up, we feel our legs, our lower legs, our knees, our upper legs, our buttocks, our stomach, our back, our chest, and we feel our arms, upper arms, lower arms. We move our fingers a bit. Please notice where you have your fingers and observe your breath as you're doing all this. We don't need to do anything with the breath, but just let it be. And then from the arms, we go to up to the shoulders. We feel our neck. We go to the head. We feel our jaws, whether they are tight or loose. Just observe how we are at this moment. And then from the jaws, we feel our cheeks. We can feel the nose, our eyes, our ears. You can feel the whole skull. Maybe you can feel hair touching your skin. Maybe you can feel the air touching your skin. And still, our breath is just there. It's just doing what it's always doing. And just observe the breath. And then, as this is a centering exercise, I want to invite you to go down again, either to your feet and feel your soles when you're standing, or when you're sitting, feel your sit bones, feel your hips. And then, in order to make us arrive in this meeting on inner work, maybe it's good to lean back a bit from the pelvis, from the hips, from the sit bones, and think about what we just left behind. Maybe we still have things in our mind that just happened or that should have happened, things that were there that occupied us just until we got into this meeting. And when we think of that, maybe it is good to take a deep breath or sigh even and realize that we are leaving behind whatever was there just before, because now we are entering this meeting with each other. We can sigh again and again. And then from the back, we lean a bit forward from the hips, from the pelvis, from the sit bones. Feel the pressure in your feet. And we lean forwards because also ahead of this meeting, there will be things asking for our attention. And maybe they're still there. Maybe they're still distracting us from being here. And we realize what is there to come, what it is that we're looking forward to, or not at all. On the contrary, maybe we're not looking forward to it, but it will come. And again, we can sigh or just take a deep breath. And we can let it there in the future. We can leave it. It will be there later, and we will deal with it. And one more breath. And then between the back and the front, we get to the middle. And now we're in this meeting, and we're going to share and listen to stories about our inner work. And there may be things that we look forward to in this meeting. There may be things that we hope for that might happen. And thinking of those, we lean a bit, also again from the bottom, we lean a bit to the left. And we think of the things, the wonderful things that may happen in this meeting with ourselves, with our community. And again, we can take a breath or sigh and accept that this is what we're taking into this meeting as our hopes, our desires, our wishes. And one more breath, and we get to the middle, and from the middle, we turn to the right. Because also, there may be things that we fear for this meeting, maybe things that we're nervous about, maybe things that we don't want to happen. And we think of those and we accept them while taking a breath. And then again, we go back to the middle and we take responsibility for our hopes and our fears for this meeting. We take responsibility to be here. And we circle a bit where we are sitting or where we're standing between the back and the left and the front and the right, or the other way around. Just small circles. And we realize that we are here now. There is by now almost 50 people in this meeting who are willing to share and listen to stories about inner work, who are prepared to do inner work now, in the past, maybe in the future. And we make these circles smaller and smaller, and they center us between these four directions. We get in the middle, we are here. And we take another deep breath, and we prepare ourselves to listen, to be open, to be present, as open and present as we can towards ourselves, towards the others, for sharing, for listening. And then again, we feel our feet, and from the feet up to the legs and to our bottom and our torso and our arms and our neck, and we can move our bodies a bit. And we can take a breath again if we like. And then when it's your time, you can open your eyes and we can start this session, the session that is the start of many very dear and important and wonderful things. thank you. I wish you all a good, wonderful afternoon. For me, this is the afternoon. Sorry. Um, thank you for joining me in this exercise.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Jens, for this important, necessary, centering moment for all of us. Let's take just a few seconds of silence to receive, to integrate this beautiful exercise led by Jens. Silence is an important inner work practice. And we welcome silence. We welcome deep listening in this session. And we welcome all of you. Thank you for being here, for showing up. Thank you to our panelists. My name is Osvaldo Montoya. I am, along with Laxman and Bianca and Jenny, my colleagues at the Global Secretariat, and others colleagues at the Global Secretariat, part of the staff of the MenEngage Global Secretariat staff. And I'm very honored to be the moderator for this conversation with our dear panelists. I am based in the US, in the East Coast of the US, even though I am from Central America, from Nicaragua. So I speak Spanish as a mother language. And I am also, like Jens, nervous about this session. And I feel the nervousness like when you go to a ceremony and you are part of the ceremony and you have this important moment. And I feel this an important moment for MenEngage in the way that we are making a commitment here. We are making an open commitment to really continue our activism from our heart, from our core being. And this really it puts everyone nervous, I guess. And it was beautiful also to see how Stephen, when Jen said, I'm nervous, say, I'm with you, we are with you. And an important part of the work is to recognize and to sit with our emotions, with our feelings. So I'm very pleased to introduce our panelists. Before doing that, I want to remind you that this is an engaging, hopefully with your contribution, this will be an engaging session. And for that, I want to tell you a little bit about the program, about the agenda. We will have 2 rounds of conversation with our panelists. In the first round, we will be exploring with them what does inner work mean to each of our panelists. And we will be asking them about their personal stories, their personal journeys regarding their activism and their inner work. And after that, we will invite all of you, all participants, and this is optional. You don't have to, but we will open breakout rooms for you to share also your own personal stories about inner work in a smaller space, in a more intimate space with 2 other participants. And as I mentioned, if you don't want to join the breakout room, that's totally fine. We also need you to rename yourself and include in your name, in the Zoom name, your language. Because during the breakout rooms, there won't be interpretation. So we want to make sure people who go to the same breakout room speak the same language, can communicate in human language. So please do that now as we are preparing for the conversation. For instance, in my case, I will rename myself and I use SPA as Spanish, so that during the breakout rooms, I might be able to join other Spanish-speaking colleagues with me. So you rename English, French, the language that you you can speak and join with others. I see a question from Jesus. Welcome, Jesus. Can you put your question in the chat, whether in Spanish or English? That's fine. I want to thank Bianca from our team, who is our coordinator of the Ubuntu Symposium and is taking a very active role in shaping this session. Jenny Rodriguez, also from our team, who has been also along with us designing this session. Laxman, of course, our co-director. So all of us have been working with our panelists preparing this session. So jump in at any time, please, if there is something that I am missing. Regarding the inner work conversation, I want to say that this is not the first activity that we are organizing about inner work with MenEngage. Actually, we had beautiful workshops and calls and meetings led by Malika Dutt and also by Melissa Waina, who is also with us. And we have been exploring about this since September last year, about what inner work is, about the need for a holistic awareness, and the importance for our evolution as activists to become really activists working from our core beings with a visionary activism and not a reactionary activism, integrating and making peace with our own suffering and our own pain, and using that, transmuting that for a good action in the world. We also talk about bringing a culture of care into our organization and networks. And that is only possible when we are attending our inner self, so that we don't hurt each other, we don't reproduce oppression among each other. And we discovered that there is a deep interest among MenEngage members and partners to incorporate inner work in the work of MenEngage. And we also realized in this conversation that MenEngage has an enormous potential to function as a community of practice in the area of inner work for social change. And we want to talk a little bit about that during this session. Having said that, I want to again introduce Melissa Waina. She's from Kenya. You can read more about her bios in the MenEngage Ubuntu app. She has been a great ally for MenEngage. She led this inner works workshop in the opening plenary in November in the Ubuntu session. And we are very committed to promoting this perspective from a feminist perspective, from a feminist journey that she has. And she will tell us more about that. Jens Vantrich, who you already saw us leading this beautiful centering practice. He's from the Netherlands. He's one of the leaders of the MenEngage Europe, and a great friend and author as well of a great book about masculinities and gender. James Arana from the US. James Arana, who will lead a closing centering practice by the end. A great colleague as well, a friend who is one of the leaders of MenEngage North America from NAMEN. José Alfredo Lugo from Mexico. Hola, José Alfredo, gracias por estar aquí. Thank you, José Alfredo. He is also another MenEngage regional leader from Latin America. And Samita Sugatimala from Sri Lanka, also again another leader of MenEngage. So we have a lot of MenEngage leaders in this session who are doing the inner and the outer work. I'm eager to hear from them. So welcome all of you. And we will start with the first question. What does inner work mean to you, to our panelists? And if you can share a little bit about your story. And as we do that, please, attendants, please, colleagues who are joining this session, feel free also to share in the chat, what does inner work mean to you? And I would love to start with Melissa. Melissa, in the past session that you led with us, you encouraged us to take up, at the very least, put serious consideration into the brave work of inner work and staying with it, even though we know it's hard and we know sometimes it's painful. And as we know, that all great journeys start with a single step. Could you share how you embark on this journey in your feminist activist work?
Thank you so much, Oswaldo. Greetings to everyone all around. I'd like to talk about the number 8. I've talked about it before, but I've never shared how I came across this number 8 and its significance in my work. I was in a difficult moment 10 years into social justice work, where I realized that the fight I was fighting and the punches I was giving were far smaller than the wars I was trying to beat. I was also getting quite a few knocks from my personal life, a few losses. There were ways in which my health was really struggling. And I sat, as we sometimes do, over a cup of tea with people who hold us and help us and give us insights. And I sat and I said, I wish all these things would come in some kind of sequence, like, hold on, this kind of oppression, this kind of war, this kind of attack, this, to come in a way that made sense for me to be able to react. And she said something really profound to me and said, that's not going to happen. But I'd like to introduce you to the number 5, the number 8. And I said, okay, so what has the digit 8 got to do with anything? She said, if you observe, it is 2 circles that touch, but none of the circles are in the other. And I said, yes, that would be, on a good day when I'm writing good handwriting, what an accurate account of number 8 would be. And she said, I need you to think about all these things as you standing on one circle and everything else in the other. And I think that was the first step for me to begin to realize that I needed to build some kind of resilience, some kind of muscle, some kind of ability to be able to be the person that I wanted to be, to change and to be part of a community that wants transformation in the world. But that also left me with something that I needed to tackle. I was in a circle with myself, and myself was not always pretty. Myself doubted itself. Myself had a sense of not feeling worthy. Myself also came with all the struggles of being criminalized because of my orientation, my sexual orientation, being looked down on because of my gender, and all these other things. Perhaps it was also the thing that made me come into this world of social change, because it was a very personal story. And so sitting in my own circle meant that I needed to be okay with me. So quite simply, my journey around inner work was finding the ways in which I could be reclaiming those lost parts of myself, the parts that I was terrified of, the parts that were hurt, the parts that were rejected, abandoned, in pain, to find a kind of wisdom, a kind of strength that helped me to gather all parts of myself into a sense of wholeness and belonging. And in order to do that, I was so happy when I heard the word of Deepak Chopra, who said the word healing is related to the word wholeness, and that healing is actually the return of the memory of wholeness. And so for me, the journey still goes on. It's not linear. Sometimes I go side, sometimes I go this other side. You see, even with the grounding exercise, we are where we are at any one time. But that was a pivotal moment for me, the number 8 and the circle and the place in which I needed to be whole. And I needed to bring the wholeness in my social action, in my political action, in my politics, in my relationships. So that is really my story, Oswaldo.
Wow. Beautiful, Melissa. Thank you so much to integrate from your reflection about this image of wholeness and belonging. Thank you so much for saying that and for reminding us that this experience of not feeling worthy, not feeling good enough, it's a shared experience for many of us, which is even more complicated due to the oppressive system that we live and identities and these oppressive identities that we have one way or another. And this important also reflection about not a linear journey, but a more fluid and complex and messy journey that we are all part of. Thank you, Melissa. I would like to invite James Arana from NAME, also from Central America. We are neighbors in Belize. As he explaining, I was listening and watching one of his interviews. And actually, in your interview I was watching, James, you were telling how you are a man of gratitude. And you remind us to start the practice of gratitude by being mindful about our breath, our capacity to breathe. And you led that, as we were preparing for this session, you led a mindfulness breathing exercise the other day. And yet you have said in previous interviews that your life has not been easy, and that precisely your experiences with pain and with loss had helped you to take you to gratitude. So can you tell us more about those experiences and how they lead to gratitude and to demand who you are, who oppose domination and who supports equality?
Good morning, James Arana again, and I am looking at the screen and I'm imagining that we are in the same space, that we had the opportunity to travel to be in the same conference room, and it is with that I greet each and every one of you. Thanks for welcoming me and inviting me to this platform where I get to share a little bit about how I not got to as in the past, but how I get to, because I'm continually working and trying to find this space to make sure that I am in connection with myself. And yes, it begins with the breath. It is beginning with the quiet. It is beginning with paying attention to what is around me. I want to say that, yes, when people look at me and hear me speak and they say, oh my God, you sound so calm and so full of righteousness. And I shake my head and rub my beard and I say, this journey where I'm at right now did not come easily. And I like to say it began with this kind of imagery growing up in the South Bronx in the United States. After leaving a very small village in my country of birth, leaving a country that had 85,000 people when I left, and moved to the United States, to the Bronx, which had, in that city itself, had millions of people. And at that time, when I got to this huge place, then the sights and sounds that overwhelmed my village spirit, the violence that was prevalent with everything that I saw and experienced as I walked down the street, that it overwhelmed me, my people, my community, because this place that I was living in the South Bronx in the 70s was like a war zone with guns firing, cars being burnt, houses being burnt, people being physically abused, mentally abused, and it was chaos in so many ways. And I like to say that even in that chaos, there were other humans who were committed to making human connection through kindness, through listening, through welcoming. So, in this community that I grew up in, where just to walk from one block to the other, different communities that I was going through, the potential was of violence was always there. And I met a few people who reminded me of being home in my village through the way that they looked at me, saw me, and welcomed me with their eyes and with their heart and with their smiles. And we made time for each other. They wanted to hear my story and what I was experiencing right then and there. And I tell you that many times, for many years, I was an angry young man. And that young man still lives within me. And many times I am still an angry young man and an angry older man. I carry that young man in me of his anger for his loss of many things. Growing up without a mother or a father because he was lied to and told that they had died in a truck accident, only to find out later on that it was a lie. Growing up with being robbed, mugged many times in my city, and then learning that everyone was not like that. I learned how to listen, look into my fellow human eyes, because people will welcome me in that way. And we were building what I call as extended family through this connection. We sat, we listened, we shared, we ate, and breathed together. It is through the breathing and looking at each other's with our eyes, welcoming all of us, our whole self, that made me feel and become the calm, quiet, and firm person. Just because I am kind and gentle does not mean that I am not firm. And it's holding that balance for me that gives me the integrity to look into my fellow human eyes and say, I welcome you no matter where you are, through looking for the connection, for the opportunity for when they are ready. And if they're not, it's still okay. There's a certain kind of respect that I have for people who are not ready, to be able to look for the opportunity for when they are. It is with that small journey, and I'm looking forward to hearing more from others who have had even more challenging journey, but how we got to this place of calm, quiet through hard work. I welcome each and every one of you, and I look forward to seeing you. Peace.
Thank you for allowing us to see you and to hear you, James. And you emphasize connection, listening, and when I hear your story, it makes me think how this inner work journey is not a solo work necessarily. You need community, and you are sharing with us how, despite being in this violent environment, this war zone, as you describe it, and so many people hurting each other in a system that is hurting the communities, you found there other human beings committed to kindness, committed to listen to each other, committed to connection, to bring connection. So that's an important reminder. We need community in order to heal, in order to do our inner work. It's not only going on our own, isolated from others. It's actually is the opposite. And your testimony tell us about that. I want to invite Samita from Sri Lanka, who is joining us. Samita, thank you for being here. Thank you for all that you do and what you have shared with us as we were preparing for this session and in other inner work meetings in which you share about also how you have been doing your own personal work while at the same time supporting other women who have experienced pain, suffering, oppression, burnout. You also mentioned to us in the past about burnout, how important it is to the self-care and also helping other women to care for themselves as well as part of their inner work. So if you want to share more about your own inner work journey, we are here to listen to you.
Thank you, Osvaldo. And of course, thank you, Jens, for that, centralizing exercise, because, as all of the other speakers also mentioned, I too was a bit nervous because, it was so many things, so many journeys, and it took me some time to figure out which part of my journey that I'm going to share today. So it had not been easy because you can't bring it all into one single journey. There had been in my life, there had been different phases, so my just to this is how I choose to share it today, right? So my personal journey had always been to find my own self as a woman, because I'm totally different person as a child or as a young girl. Growing up surrounded by women who are very vulnerable, dependent, and surrounded by men who are of very dominant nature. And myself was a very shy and timid personality. And for some reason, I knew that this can't be my life. It has to be something different. I coming from a very traditional cultural background, South Asian cultural background, and all those things about a kind of a very vulnerable definitions of who a woman is, and that is what you see. You don't see much to be inspired of. There wasn't much women around me to get inspired. So it had always been stories of vulnerability, of pain and suffering, including my own, family surroundings, coming from a broken family. And so I actually, whenever I feel that this shouldn't be my life, I always try to isolate myself from people around me, and to kind of question myself without finding much answers though. And but something always echoed within me that this shouldn't be your life, and that you need to find it somehow. I was in a way, maybe a bit angry, and sometimes I was sad, because when I see the things happening to women around me, including women in my own family, I wasn't feeling good about it. And I know that these women, including my mother, I respect her so much, but including her mother, I knew that she's not the person that I would be inspired of. I didn't want that kind of a life, and so it's like it had been a so hard journey finding my own self. So I think sometimes I was angry and I was feeling sad, and at a point, I was blaming myself for being a woman. Why did I, why was it like I had to be born as a woman? Because of a woman, I have to go through all this. My mother, my other family members, women I saw, all of them have to go through this because they are women. So it's like, sometimes you hate your own self. And I grew up self-blaming, and that I will never forget whenever I talk to a woman. Even now in my journey, even in my work, in my in my connections with women with whom I work. I mean, I have connected with thousands of women throughout my career as a social change maker, and that that I had only one aim, one purpose, to kind of take them out of that feeling of self blame, so that they know they will feel some value, they will feel worthy of being women. So that was my only and even now that is my only passion in life. And like when I had to face as a student, and when we were going to school, when I had to undergo sometimes sexual harassment in public transport, because our public transport is very crowded, and it's very the facilities were very limited. I mean, I know that is not the reason, but the reasons have been different, but still that was what I saw. So having limited access, not having my own way of traveling, so all these things combined together to build that kind of vulnerable feeling within me, which kept on putting me into this hard point where I kind of hated myself as a woman. And anyone who knew me as a child or as a young girl would find myself as today total, it's a 360% different person. And they would I mean, I have met people asking me, are you that same Samita? Because we didn't see this much of energy in you, this much of empowerment in you. And like this, but there had been so many incidences that inspired, actually. I still this one lady come to my mind, one of my lecturers in the university when I was studying sociology, and she is the first woman I saw who dress up nicely. She was like, doing her makeup and dressing nicely and talking about oppression and gender inequality with so much of smile in her face. And I knew that I want to be that kind of a person. And she was my inspiration. And even now, when I stand in front of people and when I talk, she comes to my mind. And that I mean, starting from there had been so many people throughout my journey who inspired me later. Even the women who are in the rural communities, women whom I met kept on blaming themselves for being women. And with the experiences that I went through, when I meet a woman, and if I talk to her just 30 seconds, I know that what is inside her, how she is feeling, and I use the next 30 seconds to change that. And that kind of give me the strength, the happiness. So I think that is what I would call my inner work, that getting that feeling out of that woman, and when she says that I am so happy that I met you today, I'm not the person who came here, I'm a different person going home. So I think it had been kind of a lot of emotions and lot of even now, as James also mentioned, and my work colleagues also tells me sometimes that I react, I don't respond. I know that my in a kind of a social change journey that I am in, I need to learn more to respond to situations, not to react. My reactions comes with all of my emotions. So even today, talking about inner work, I know that I have not overcome everything. But I am in that journey, finding my own self every day and supporting women throughout that journey. And I will keep on finding myself, and I will keep on kind of exercising my inner work, so that that will never end. Because like Osvaldo, you correctly mentioned, I always talk about it. It frustrates me when sometimes we have to move forward and backward every time. We are happy today because we have moved 1 inch, and the next day you have to move 2 inches back, and that frustration and that feeling of burning out, it's a process. And every after end of every day, you can't expect people to come and give a kind of a massage to your shoulders. And if that doesn't happen, you get even more frustrated. So that after end of every day, before going to sleep, I pat my own shoulder. That is my practice, and say that you can go on. You did your best today, and that you can go on. So pat your shoulder. So for the moment, I'll stop there.
You are an inspiration, Samita, for all of us. You have been inspired by other women in your country, and you are inspiring us now with your testimony, with your story of empowerment, as you said, of personal and collective empowerment, challenging all these experiences, facing all these challenges that you share with us about oppression of women in families, in families that oppression is still there and break our families apart, as you were explaining to us, sexual harassment, and how that is internalized, of self-blame. And yes, patriarchy is very good at blaming the oppressed, blaming women, also blaming men in many ways, and seeing how you came out of that, and how you found inspiration in others. I think it's beautiful. Role models that sometimes it's hard to find in our immediate setting, as you were explaining to us. Thank you, Samita, for what you are doing, for your testimony. And I want to recognize and thanks also colleagues, participants who in the chat are also have been inspired by what they are hearing from us, from panelists, and are sharing also what inner work means for them, and how they are approaching this journey, as Amita explained. So at some point, Bianca, feel free to jump in and provide any flavor of what people are writing in the chat. We can also share the chat content later, after the session, so that we can really enjoy and go deeper on all the reflections that are happening simultaneously right now. So to continue with the round of reflection and stories from our panelists, I would like to invite Jose Alfredo. Bienvenido, Jose Alfredo, from Mexico, one of the leaders of MenEngage Latin America, y un gran amigo también. Jose Alfredo, I have learned a lot from you, from your experiences, from how deeply you know the culture, in Mexico, and how that it has been part of your reflection of who you are. So please share your story about inner work in how you would like to share with us. Bienvenido, José Alfredo. Te escuchamos.
Queridos Waldo, compañeros, compañeras, muchísimas gracias. Estoy recibiendo como todo un regalo de la mañana, porque desde este lugar del mundo está empezando la jornada. Así que les abrazo a la distancia. Tengo algunas complicaciones desde el día de ayer en la garganta, por lo que trataré de administrarme, pero eso no obsta para compartirme con mucho corazón como lo han hecho ustedes, lo cual agradezco mucho. Hasta esta parte del viaje, como James, el viaje no ha terminado, aun cuando estamos en una pausa obligada, en una tregua que nos otorga el confinamiento. Estaba yo recordando que justo hace un año estábamos en Kigali, estábamos viajando y de repente me costó trabajo entender que la importancia de viajar no necesariamente siempre era una apuesta a dónde llegar, si bien había muchas cosas que descubrir. La verdadera riqueza casi siempre descansaba en la posibilidad de vivir, es decir, en el trayecto, en los compañeros de viaje, en las experiencias. Y ahí me ha tocado contactar con cosas que han sido confrontadoras, reveladoras, en la revisión y en el proceso interno. Y no me atrevería a decir que han sido una contribución a la transformación social, pero sí ha sido un estilo de vida que a través de las convicciones me he decidido, me he procurado, porque creo que es posible aspirar a mejores condiciones de convivencia, de relación entre nosotros y nosotras. Ahí en una de esas decisiones que uno no se da cuenta que le han cambiado la vida, sino hasta que pasan muchos años, me ha determinado empezar a estudiar el bachillerato en una ciudad como la de México, con más de 20 millones de habitantes, y estar en contacto directo con los movimientos estudiantiles, el Consejo Estudiantil Universitario, la Unión Revolucionaria Estudiantil, fueron determinando la posición que ocuparía más adelante en mi proceso personal y en mi formación, perdón, y experiencia social. Me llamo José Alfredo, llevo el nombre del abuelo José, quien determinó cómo nos íbamos a llamar muchos hombres en la familia. Tenemos a José Agustín, a José Benito, yo soy José Alfredo, porque además llevo el nombre de mi padre, ¿no? Al ser el primer hijo varón, lo cual ya tiene suficiente carga patriarcal que podríamos analizar. Y como les comentaba, nací y viví mucho tiempo en la Ciudad de México. Y hace pocos años, 4 apenas, que decidí salir de la Ciudad de México para vivir en una ciudad de menos de 500,000 de habitantes, lo cual ya es un síntoma bastante interesante sobre, sobre cómo colocarse frente a esta vorágine y dinámica social. En uno de los primeros viajes, cuando yo decidí empezar a trabajar en los 90, el tema fue sin duda la promotoría juvenil comunitaria, la que me permitió empezar a entrar en contacto con la gente. Me di cuenta que viajar y trabajar era la mejor fórmula, dado que no había forma de no conocer a cada una de las personas con las que interactuaba, ni cada una de las comunidades a las que llegaba. Sin embargo, uno tiene la fantasía que cuando uno va a trabajar a la comunidad, por alguna razón asume que va a enseñar algo. Quien hace este trabajo, como ustedes saben, que siempre terminamos llevándonos mucho más de lo que alcanzamos a dejar. Y yo en esos primeros viajes descubrí muchísimas cosas, me maravillé de tantas formas. Y una de ellas fue descubrir la riqueza en la forma de saludarse por los pueblos tzotziles, dado que en su lengua originaria solían decirse el vocablo kuché. Como muchas otras lenguas originarias, los vocablos no tienen una traducción literal, sino es una composición de conceptos. Y yo al inicio asumí que decir kuché significaba buenos días, u hola, o cómo estás. Acostumbrado a diluirme en el anonimato de la gran ciudad, me acostumbré también al formalismo de saludar sin otorgarle el gran significado que hay detrás. En la traducción me di cuenta, pero sobre todo en la convivencia, que el vocablo couché era toda una interpelación, que la traducción más cercana al español significaba ¿cómo está tu corazón? Es decir, los y las otziles al encontrarse por la mañana solían preguntarse, ¿y hoy cómo está tu corazón? Y en ese momento, al sentirme casi desnudo frente a no saber cómo contestar, dado que las mayorías de las veces la gente contesta que está bien. Es más, tiene un intento por desmarcarse lo más pronto que pueda de la pregunta y responde bien, ¿y tú? Buscando que el otro hable de sí, que tú no tengas que hablar de ti mismo. Hay una negación para compartirse, hay una resistencia para centrarse, para hablar de sí. Me resultó sumamente importante descubrir en la cultura tzotzil la importancia de mirarse a través del otro. Principio que compartimos, por cierto, en el Ubuntu, muy arraigado en los pueblos africanos y que nos convocan en este simposio. Y curiosamente práctica, basada en la conciencia y en la colectividad, que podría ponernos en un mejor lugar durante la pandemia que estamos viviendo. Tener conciencia del otro, hacer el trabajo con corazón, poner el cuerpo en esta reflexión, me resulta absolutamente fundamental. De tal suerte que el trabajo personal, las reflexiones, los procesos llegan en su justa dimensión y en su justo momento. Hay veces cuando veo llegar a los grupos de hombres con los que trabajamos, a hombres jóvenes cuestionarse y hacer alguna reflexión sobre la forma como establecen sus relaciones, que me genera cierta envidia y no dejo de pensar que tal vez si yo hubiera llegado más joven todavía a hacer estas reflexiones y hacer estas conclusiones, me podría haber ahorrado alguno que otro descalabro. Y sin embargo, las cicatrices también forman parte de la manera como me ha tocado y he elegido construirme. Desde la mirada ampliada de la paz, ha sido fundamental distinguir en qué lugar de la pirámide o del iceberg podemos incidir. Cuando hablo de un iceberg frente al que nos enfrentamos o las problemáticas que vivimos, distingo que la punta que se alcanza a ver por encima del nivel del mar no es que sea menos importante, pero curiosamente es la que menos víctimas cobra todos los días. Estoy hablando de un tipo de violencia que es directa, que es visible, que es cruda, que es explícita y que nos lleva a generar estrategias para intervenir desde la atención, pero que debajo del nivel del mar podemos encontrar violencias de orden estructural inmersas en nuestros profundos modelos económicos y políticos que laceran y que cobran todavía más víctimas segundo a segundo, más que la violencia directa. Por lo que se vuelve fundamental también hacer una apuesta y una estrategia de intervención para incidir en la modificación de esos modelos estructurales. Pero modificar los modelos estructurales y modificar las acciones a través de la violencia directa en la punta del iceberg no será sino la consecuencia de hacer un profundo trabajo de deconstrucción en la base del iceberg, en la base de la montaña, en lo que conocemos como la violencia cultural. Y le podemos poner nombre y apellido. La violencia cultural de género, que está inmersa en nuestros pensamientos, en nuestras creencias, en nuestras ideas que determinan los mandatos acerca de lo que asumimos que significa ser un hombre o una mujer en nuestras culturas. En Oriente y en Occidente padecemos exactamente de los mismos mandatos con sus matices, por lo que trabajar en la modificación de estos pensamientos, de estas creencias nos llevará al cambio de actitudes y de prácticas y en consecuencia muy probablemente a materializar la gran apuesta, la utopía de la igualdad, que si bien sigue siendo un sueño, es la única fuerza de trabajo, la única fuerza motriz que nos podría llevar a consolidar algún tipo de victoria. Y sobre esas victorias me encanta la referencia, y con esto termino, de Darcy Ribeiro, antropólogo, político, sociólogo brasileño, quien relata su única victoria y que suscribo en este momento de mi viaje. Me puse del lado de los indios y me derrotaron. Me puse del lado de los negros y me derrotaron. Me puse del lado de los campesinos y me derrotaron. Me puse del lado de los obreros y me derrotaron. Me puse del lado de los perseguidos y me derrotaron. Me puse del lado de los discriminados y me derrotaron. Me puse del lado de los débiles y me derrotaron. Pero nunca me puse del lado de los que me vencieron. Esa es mi victoria. Muchas gracias.
Gracias, José Alfredo, por esa reflexión, la forma en que comenzaste reconociendo la carga patriarcal que llevas en tu propio nombre, que llevamos muchas veces los hombres, siguiendo el linaje patriarcal del padre, del abuelo. Me parece que es una conciencia de los privilegios y donde nos ponen a los hombres en nuestras sociedades, que tiene quizás que ver cómo luego nos contabas lo difícil que era para vos poder responder a esa pregunta: ¿cómo está tu corazón? ¿Cómo te movía el tapete, como dicen ustedes los mexicanos? Porque estamos tan desconectados. El sistema, el patriarcado eh, se encarga de desconectarnos de nuestro corazón, porque eso le conviene, porque si realmente estuviéramos conectados con nuestro corazón, no permitiríamos tanta opresión, tanta injusticia, pero nos van anestesiando y nos van acostumbrando a no saber qué es lo que realmente pasa en nuestro corazón. Así que esa pregunta de la cultura social, couché, ¿cómo está tu corazón? Es una pregunta subversiva, realmente. Y, y lo ligo con el trabajo interior de la autoconciencia. Y vos lo mencionaste, la importancia del cuerpo, porque el corazón está en el cuerpo y se siente, y las emociones se sienten en el cuerpo. Gracias por todo lo que nos has compartido, por toda esa sabiduría. Y ahora quiero pasarle la palabra a Jens. Bienvenido, James. Gracias por dirigirnos esa práctica de centrarnos. Y ahora queremos escuchar tu historia y tu reflexión, James, que es muy rica también. Adelante.
Thank you so much. I just wrote in the chat, Oswaldo, I want to thank you for the wonderful way that you give back to each of us what we just shared. I think that's very powerful. Thank you very much. And then I find this challenging. I was very enthusiastic when I was invited, and I still am. And then yesterday, I received an email from Oswaldo inviting us to prepare the stories that we would share. And I started writing, and of course, I couldn't finish. Because the story isn't finished, and somehow it's easier to talk about things that I have processed already than things that I'm processing still. And now, after having heard so many wonderful stories again, I'm not just processing all my own journeys and stories, but I'm also processing what I just heard and what it did to me, what it does to me. And what I realized yesterday when I started writing is that somehow, when talking about my inner work, about my vulnerabilities, I distance myself from them, or I tend to. There is a risk of doing that, and then I put my story there, and I'm here. Maybe like in the number 8, I'm in the one circle, and my story gets in the other circle. but then it's just a story. Then it's so. I've been going many directions now, and I will try to share some things, maybe also some questions and dilemmas that I experience with this inner work, of which this is really the first one, that it is important to be in the work and do it and share it. And at the same time, the moment that I give words to it, it becomes something that not always really is what it is. Maybe sometimes I don't need the words. Maybe sometimes I just need the connection to be with people, or maybe in between the words and in my body or in my movements or in my presence, the whole story is told and not just in the words. Um, and then another thing that bothers me, not just now, but always in this inner work process or journeys, is that so often in my life already I thought, so now I solved it, or now I'm done with it, now I can move on. And then some moment later, it can be a month, a year, years, I'm confronted with exactly the same challenge in my life, maybe in a different way, maybe on a different level. So also I like to talk about this. I want to share, I want to listen. And somehow I wonder, who am I to talk about these things when I'm not ready for it? Or when am I ready? When is my story ready? When do I reach the point that I can be an expert to talk about this, as all of us were introduced here? So there is also self-doubt and critters and self-criticism there, because I want to do it right. And I think one thing of inner work is that it's more important to do it than to be right in it. Yeah. So what I thought is, well, what I realized actually when hearing all the other stories, I think actually inner work is something that has been with me all my life. I'm 52 now. My father died 2 years ago. I thought I was ready for that, but I had no clue. So in the past 2 years, I've been reflecting ever more on my relation with him, the way I was brought up, the messages about being masculine, and other stuff that I got. And it also made me reflect on my youth and on his youth, in fact, because I'm also carrying his burdens of life, I think. And he taught me when I was very young already that I shouldn't cry. So I got angry. And then he told me not to be angry, but be reasonable. So I got reasonable and I detached from emotions that then would pop up every now and then. And of course, create trouble. So I hit my sister. I caused her having a blue eye. I was angry at the world. I was self-destructive. I grew up in a very protected, privileged environment. Let's call it the Shire, a rural area not far away from all the main cities of the Netherlands. Very, yeah, very calm and quiet, believing in a beautiful world. And then when I grew up, I realized, wow, this is not the Shire. Actually, we're living in Mordor. We are not the hobbits, we're the orcs here. We are creating so much trouble, injustice, pain in the world, and we are just being satisfied here with our own lives. That hurt. And that I distanced myself from that. So I became involved in punk rock music and political activism. I went into drug and alcohol abuse. I was depressed. I was angry at the world, fuck the system. And in the political movement, I found ways to turn the anger into more constructive political activism. But still, there was a huge destructive and self-destructive dimension to that. I think I was a radicalized youth, the way we talk about that now, and there were periods that I was dreaming of taking on guns and joining some kind of guerrilla somewhere to give meaning to my life. And I'm glad I got involved in feminism. I had the privilege to live in a squatted house with 4 women, 1 other man. There were many stories of women talking about sexual violence, male dominance, incest, other horrible things that I at first could think were distant examples of bad things happening, but not of a structural cause. But it got more and it closed in more and more, and even in our own circles there were incidents, there were rapes happening. The ways that we were discussing those things really pointed out to me that there was an issue, that we had a big problem, and that we needed to do something about that. And the personal and the political very much came together there. That I learned from feminism that actually all these problems in the world, all these injustices that we were creating in the world, were actually being created by men, by white men even. So um, and at the same time, we opened up empty buildings, empty spaces, and we wanted to create a better world there. We were revolutionaries, and we were also utopianists. We wanted to start living and loving and working in different ways. So we explored ourselves, and we had men's groups and circles, and explored our socialization and tried to reverse roles, or experiment with how we could do things differently. Um, and for me, this is really, I think, well, I guess it kind of saved me. It challenged me a lot. So I had to live with the fact that I was representing actually the orcs in the world, the people causing most problems, people being really privileged. And at the same time, I learned that many things from what I learned from my father, awkward relations with friends or political comrades, somehow they fell into place, and I realized that well, that feminism was right for me, about the injustices at large, and also about my personal struggles and the need to change. Um, well, so I started studying women's studies. I explored my own masculinity. I wondered, who am I? I deconstructed myself. I'm still deconstructing and trying to reconstruct myself, or trying to be human and also not walk away from my responsibilities, being raised as a man in this world, as a white man in a Western country. um, and I think, well, yeah, let's say first I got 34, and for a large part of my youth, I thought I will never pass 30. I was depressed. I was losing friends on drugs, on suicide. I thought I would be one of them. I wouldn't pass 30. And then I was 34. I had lived fast, but I didn't die young. So I got a burnout. And the burnout um, was good because one day I could only cry. I couldn't do anything else. And I realized I have no connection with my body. I'm very emotional. I need to look for, well, in Dutch we would call it emotional body work. I don't know what it would be a correct English phrase. So since then, I've been exploring many therapeutical, counseling, also spiritual, meditative practices. I still cherish them as a central part of my life. I have a therapy session every other week. I try to integrate these practices in my life, and still now it's as I said, I'm 52, so it's 18 years after the burnout already. I'm not done with it. The struggle is still there. I feel that um, for a man who has been proclaiming that men should be more caring in their lives, I've not been very caring towards myself. And I think, well, um, it's clear that I have to change my life still in order to live a bit longer, to live a constructive life, to be able to be of worth for the cause, for people in my environment, for my kids, for my partner, for my colleagues. So yeah, maybe I should stop it here. It's an ongoing quest actually, and it's very fulfilling in the sense that I feel so much more whole and healed than I could ever imagine that was a possibility. And at the same time, in every step, I also become more aware of the way that I still need to go. So I guess this is for the rest of my life. And oh yeah, and then bringing it back to here, because I feel it has very much been a lonely journey that I could share with more easily with women in my surroundings than with men. That I would also encounter more women in than men. That for a long time felt, for me, they integrated, but in my work, in emancipator work, in MenEngage, they seem to be distant tracks. And I think this session for me already really offers that this is a shared journey that well, I've been saying since 2009, MenEngage is for me my sangha, my spiritual community, from where I do what I do in the world. And now maybe it really truly can become that, not just on a work level, but also very much on a personal transformation level. Thank you.
Wow, thank you, Jens. As I listen to you, I am confronting my own prejudice. We still carry a lot of prejudice, and as a man of, we are called here in the US people of color, man of color, in my case, as a Latino mixed heritage from Nicaragua, and I hear you. What I see at the surface is a white man from Europe with all this privilege and dominance. And as you speak and share about your suffering, about how difficult also you have to go through very painful experiences, and my prejudice in some way dissolves and helps me to connect to the shared humanity among all of us. Because despite all, because privileges are still there for sure, and you mentioned that, and you mentioned your guilt for the privilege and the advantage that you and your group and your people have, but still beyond privileges that you have, I can see the common humanity of suffering and how that connects us. And yeah, I think we can learn a lot from you, even though we don't I don't share your background, but I can relate to your story. And when you talk about these intense emotions, this angry, this how this political activism become an angry political activism at the beginning, in my case also was very fanatical because of that, and how you were able to find your way through different forms, as you were explaining to us, men's group, circles, studying, emotional body work, and beautifully saying that MenEngage could be also, it is a spiritual community, a community for healing as well, for growing. Thank you for sharing all of that. You were also sharing about looking for meaning in your life. All this effort has been looking for meaning, and this is what we are doing in some way, looking for meaning, for a deeper meaning beyond the traditional, just we as a man be successful and acquire a good social status and material security and wealth or power, going beyond this superficial meaning. And this looking for meaning have, I think, brought us here in some way. Thank you, Jens, really for opening your heart. I want to give a chance to Bianca to share a little bit about what we are hearing also from the chat so far. And Bianca, also your own reflections. Please take advantage of the microphone. to share?
I'm very aware of the time, and I know we have a lot to go through as well. So I'll just share, there's been a lot of resonance in the chat about what has been said by the speakers. And a lot of people are really resonating with what is being shared. So thank you to all the speakers for your vulnerability, for your courage. And then just a couple of comments I thought I could share in terms of, we asked the question at the beginning, what is inner work to you? What does it mean to you? And there's been a couple of responses in the chat box. So here's one. For me, inner work is to see and accept myself as I am, and not my social image or my image about myself or my role in my organization, etc. Someone else said, inner work for me has been when I was intentional and disciplined about being compassionate to myself. Someone else wrote that this work includes joining the work to acknowledge and heal the wounds I've experienced and the ways I've been and am underappreciated, with also grappling with and continuing to challenge my flaws in this work, in the ways that I've internalized and continue to practice white supremacist patriarchal behaviors, inwardly being critical without being judgmental, holding myself accountable without being shaming. And then my inner work is integrally connected to my efforts and work and relationship with others. So I'll leave it at that, because as I say, I know that we do have a fair amount still to get through, but thank you all for your comments, and do please keep sharing in the chat, and we'll share it again, hopefully later on.
Thank you, Bianca. Shall we go now to the breakout rooms? We want to invite you to share a little bit more based on what you heard from the panelists, and especially based on your own story, your own life. Share with two others in this group about inner work, about your journey. And it's optional. If you don't want to go to a breakout room, that's fine. You can stay in the larger room. And now I'm going to ask Tami-san to organize the breakout rooms. We will have 9 minutes for that. So three people in each breakout rooms, 3 minutes each of you to share, and try to some of you try to keep the time so that the three of you can have an opportunity to share. Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back. I hope you had a beautiful time with other fellow participants in this session. I want to move ahead with the second round of conversations. This will be briefer, of course, because we only have 20 minutes left. And if you want to share some of your reflections, your takeaways from the conversation in the breakout rooms, please do so. We encourage you to do that. And we can keep those reflections and then share it back to you. And there are so many beautiful things happening, reflection happening right now. So please, let's use the technology to share some of your reflections and what you heard in your small groups. As we do that, we want to invite, in a more free-flowing way this time, with our 5 panelists, your reflections on the title of this session, which was why inner work within MenEngage. Why now and why not? This is the question that we pose, thinking about this space, the MenEngage Alliance, and the mission of MenEngage, which is, as you know, transforming patriarchal masculinities, working with men and boys as a means to contribute to social justice and to a gender free from gender oppression and other form of oppressions. So why inner work should be something that MenEngage should explore, nurture, promote in some way. And yeah, your thoughts, dear panelists, on that, on thinking about our common platform, which is the MenEngage Alliance. So who would like to come first? I mean, more free. Let's make it more free flowing. And if other panelists want to jump in and yeah, add a question for who's speaking, let's do that. So who would like to start sharing? Melissa, please. Melissa, did you raise your hand?
Yes, I did. I am noticing my internet being wonky. So I'd like to just give, and I'm conscious of time, I'd like to give my reflections. I think it's important at the first to recognize that we are all in the business, at least in this space, to protect and defend our right to speak out, our right to organize, our right to take action in things that are important to us as humanity. They are sometimes called as key elements of a democratic space, if you go all technical. But I think we also need to remember that we find ourselves in a place or a space that has wounded our instincts. We pull back, we distrust our ideas, we distrust our responses, we question the validity of our feelings and our experiences. We also cede power. We cede power to something that is outside of ourselves. Because also we exist in social constructions, which we sometimes can't question, sometimes are told are absolute truths. And so it's important we think about these societies that we've constructed that are plundering, that are putting profit before people, that are seeking dominance and not being people-centered. I need for us to think about, what does people-centered mean? What does care mean in our context, in whatever way in which we work? And so maybe what we are trying to challenge is the silence that we learned, the keeping ourselves to ourselves, and that even the selves to ourselves, we are not happy with ourselves to ourselves. We are not comfortable with who we are. And so we are hidden. We are hidden from each other, but we are also hidden from ourselves. We avoid talking about real issues. We distance. We don't want to be seen as weird people having weird ideas that are transformative. Actually, the very things that make us human, they are our sense of humanity. So back to returning to that memory that we talked about, the memory of humanity. It's important that we remember we live in today's world. And so in today's world, we are both the subjects or taking a leading role in how we choose to connect and how we may be complicit to divisiveness. And so in the spirit of Ubuntu, I am because you are, it's important that we connect that sense of interbeing and interdependence, that sense of community, that thing that bonds us together as a community. The standard basic unit is you and I. It's you and I. And so if we move around away from the individualistic tropes that have divided us, let's move away from that and instead perhaps call this the idea of self-love, the idea of perceiving yourself from a place of care, compassion, and gentleness. The investment of inner work actually allows us to be most vulnerable with our truths. It gives us a way to show ourselves on how we can turn up both for ourselves, but also for each other. It gives us a deeper understanding. It gives us more compassion. It expands us. It makes us gentle. It's a gateway, actually, to change this planet. It's a tool that we can have to transform you and me. So I want us to maybe think about the way in which our scarcity mentality or our unworthy, feeling unworthy, has really dominated the narrative of who we say we are as individuals, where we feel we have to attain a sense of perfection that just never reaches, how we work too hard, more than we should, how we have a sense of perfection that's so high that no one else around us who we work with, who we live with, can meet it. The not enoughness. We need to challenge that and instead offer an alternative that is affirming. We need to explore and find our worthiness through self-love, through a sense of value, through a sense that is significant and appreciated, through a sense of plenty. Thank you.
We need your visionary language, Melissa, in MenEngage, with this question that why at MenEngage? Because we need this visionary way in which you talk about interbeing, interdependence, community, culture of care. We need more of that language to create that reality in MenEngage. We have to recognize we come more from the against oppression, against violence, against domination, and very few in imagining this new reality that you beautifully are constructing, are saying. Thank you. Who wants to continue from the panelists on what is the, and try to be brief, like 1 minute. What is for why MenEngage working on inner work? Let's try to keep it to 1 minute so that we have opportunity to all of us, to all of you panelists, to share. Samita?
Yeah, Osvaldo, I'll definitely take 1 minute, be very short. Because I actually wanted to stop from where Melissa, start from where Melissa stopped, to bring this, change this language of transformation. Because, when we talk about social change and transformation, it normally gives people a feeling of uncomfortableness, that thinking that the change might put us all, we will lose out. It will put us in an uncomfortable situation. Because, the language that we always talk about is that we ask people, how do you want to change? What does change mean to you? We always keep asking people. We focus on how others need to change. We don't focus on how we should be part of together part of the change process. So that the change has to happen within your own self. So I think why now? Because MenEngage has to bring out the best in people. So I think inner work, self-care, the building the culture of trust and care will help to build that, to overcome that uncomfortableness and bring the best person out of you. I think that is the transformation.
Thank you, Samita. Totally agree. Colleagues, jump in. Dear panelists, building from what you have been hearing about why inner work with MenEngage. Jens, please.
Thank you. Yeah, I totally agree with Melissa and Samita, and also your summary of that, Osvaldo. That we need to work on the change we want to be in the world, and not just against the things that we don't want to be. In my story, that was, we need more attention for the utopian dimension of our movement. And also, I think it is important that we that we break through the habit of thinking the problem is elsewhere, that it's others who have to change first or foremost. So the inner work is also very much about the critical reflection on ourselves, and also on living with, as Shay Franklin put it in the preparation last week, when we are held accountable on whatever issues, to be with that and to work on that and to share this with others and to transform that is also very important inner work that we need to do. And I believe that by doing that, we can find ways to offer also perspective solutions to the many young and older men in the world looking for solutions for their problems and thinking that they can find them in regression, in going back to patriarchal or authentic masculinities or whatever. So we need to live the change that we want to see in the world, also as a way of to be able to present this to all those men that we need to reach, or to reach out to, I would say. Yeah. Thank you.
Right, the interconnection between our own personal inner work and the work that we are offering to other men. They need to be hand in hand, back to back. Otherwise, Laxman was mentioning that. How can we do this work, transforming men and boys, if we are not part of that transformation? Definitively.
Yeah.
Thank you. Other colleagues from the panelists who want to, your final reflection based on what you're hearing, and focus more on the why within MenEngage, your vision for MenEngage, embracing this work.
Hi, I wanted to say that the why is to model that it can be done, and especially for people who are in crisis. And I want to say poverty. Most of the time, when we think of inner work, we're thinking of people who are successful and who are doing well in the world. And yet, the people who need to be able to feel a sense of calm and centering and connection are people who are not privileged economically. And so to be able to model so that the inner work can be accessible to everyone, no matter what their social or economical status is. Punto.
Yes, yes, we all need that. And we activists sometimes think that others are the ones who need to do this work, that we already went through that. And that reminds me the concept in some interesting concept that I heard about spiritual bypassing, that I'm good, I'm already woke and advanced, and I am conscious of my privilege, and are others who I need to support. Whereas we are also part of the process as well of change. And this is for all of us. Jose Alfredo, please come in. Adelante, Jose Alfredo.
Gracias, querido Oswaldo. Me quedo pensando que el trabajo con hombres no es ninguna prioridad casi que en ninguna latitud del mundo. Es decir, ya se mira hasta con cierta sospecha. ¿Será que de verdad pueden cambiar? Una compañera en algún momento me hizo una declaración que a mí me parecía muy confrontadora por ser cierta e incómoda. Decía ella, los hombres que asisten a sus grupos no son violentos redimidos, son violentos refinados. Y es muy interesante porque este proceso de revisión y de transformación nunca se acaba. Lo que nos revela son las sutilezas para reciclar el poder. Y yo diría que desde MenEngage estamos obligados a impulsar este trabajo de revisión y de transformación frente a las exigencias de los grandes cambios sociales. Es decir, en Latinoamérica tenemos toda una agenda pública y de movilización a través de las compañeras, a través de los feminismos, mientras en el sur se consolida una lucha por la despenalización del aborto. En Centroamérica se busca asegurar el suplemento alimenticio y todas las luchas son igual importantes. Y no hay forma en la que los hombres no debamos asumir nuestra responsabilidad e involucrarnos. Creo que de alguna manera tenemos que seguir impulsando estos cambios, dejando de lado la competencia, la vanidad en la que solemos reciclarnos. Y si dejamos de ser omisos y nos apropiamos de estos procesos, en consecuencia vamos a poder ser más felices. Alguna vez me preguntaban en una entrevista por qué hacíamos este trabajo, ¿no? Que a veces se puede asumir muy sin el sentido. Y la respuesta más a la mano que encontré justamente fue porque los hombres nos merecemos ser felices, pero construir la felicidad no será consecuencia solo de una decisión, sino del involucramiento y la responsabilidad que asumamos en nuestros procesos personales y para ello contribuir al cambio. Gracias.
Gracias, Jose Alfredo. And with that one, we are about to close. We want to close with a center in practice led by James Arana. You can see in the slides what is coming up regarding the Ubuntu ongoing program. And we can share this afterwards again so that you can join us for the next session tomorrow, Wednesday, and also on Thursday, the parallel sessions. Now, passing on to James to close this beautiful session with a center in practice to integrate what we have been experiencing for these 2 hours. So over to you, James.
Again, I would like us to all take a deep breath. See if we could take 3 deep breaths together. Beginning. And because of time, what I would like us to do, and I love that several of us have said, demonstrated how we do this. And what I would love for us to do is to be able to do something we have not been able to do for a long time, and that is to give ourselves a hug. And some of our panelists have practiced and modeled. This is something that we have not done, or especially men don't get to take the time to embrace themselves. So please give ourselves a hug. And then what I would like us to do is, if you feel okay enough, to look at someone in the screen and then just give them a hug, a virtual hug. Give someone else by just switching hands position, switch hand position, and give someone else a hug. Yes, yes, yes. And out of your day, we were able to spend this time together. And for that, you could have been 100 other places, but because you were here, I would love for us to please tap ourselves on the shoulder for showing up for good work. And again, now just put both your hands on your heart and with your eyes and your breath, say thank you with your eyes and with your breath. And it is with that, I say, let's continue to go into the world to look for each other's eyes and heart. Enjoy.
Thank you, James. Thank you, everyone. Remember, there will be 2 more sessions on inner work on April 13 and on May 16. I hope you can join us also for this ongoing reflection and inner work together within MenEngage.
Peace.